What's up, gamers? My name is INKStudios, your host for Fox Facts News. News for the fandom, from the fandom. This year wouldn't be a true 2022 unless we had a bad hot take to start it off. And this take involves a reoccurring subject within the fandom, the price of fursuits. This week in the fandom, Twitter user TizzyFits claims fursuit makers should have more affordable fursuits in order to make suiting more accessible to the fandom. Tizzy claims that fursuiting is a core part of the identity to being a furry, and that with makers raising their prices and charging more than $5,000 for a suit, it's making suiting less accessible than before. Tizzy offers a solution that makers should have multiple price points so they can include others who aren't economically privileged in their customer base. What Tizzy doesn't acknowledge is you don't have to have a fursuit to be in the fandom, or to even have an identity at all. The fandom is so much more than just fuzzy animal costumes, and the only thing required for you to be in the fandom is you. In regards to her solution, this fix is already in place and has been for years. Multiple artists offer parts as well as full suit upgrades to their clients for those who just need pieces and can't afford a full suit. And we all know that the only way to have a core identity in this fandom is to attach that worth to how many people you can sleep with in one convention. Tizzy's second claim is that suit buying is like trying to buy a very well-made handbag like Gucci or Chanel when she only needs one from Target for like $20. However, this argument kind of falls apart when we insert certain big makers into her sentence, like so. I'd like to buy a simple fursuit, but I can only find makers like Multicolored Bark who charge $10,000 plus for suits when I want one that's cheaper. What should I do? It's suggested that Tizzy is only looking at bigger makers and asking them to make their work more affordable versus seeking out the many smaller makers this fandom has out there who charge reasonable prices that are much cheaper than bigger makers. And just unfortunately for Tizzy, there isn't a Canal Street for fursuits. Twitter user Phoenix Nest made an illustration to highlight this issue, which shows exactly what TizzyFits seems to be upset about, and also what she seems to be ignoring. After being shown this image, TizzyFits says she promptly ignored this image in lieu of better solutions, which she doesn't actually give, and claims that exploiting new makers for their work isn't the solution either. I personally wasn't aware that exploit now means paying a new maker a reasonable amount for their work and supporting their business, but hey, it is 2022, so new year, new resolutions, and new definitions for words. Tizzy tries to make an effort to clear up her argument, which definitely doesn't contradict itself, not a little bit, not even a tidbit, by saying this isn't about makers changing their prices, but rather about how they can cut down production time, which makes them more money and cost customers less. Tom, can you look over this? I can't say that, but it's not right. But how does that work? The money you get is based on how much you charge your customers. But that's not how this works. Tom, I know it's in the script, but that's the dumbest shit I've heard. However, if you don't pay too much attention to the argument, you squint really hard and hold your head sideways, I guess it kinda starts to make sense. Tizzy's final argument is that there should be technology implemented to cut down on the time it takes to make fursuits. And honestly, while this is a good idea and makers are constantly looking for new innovative ways to craft their products, this shouldn't affect price at all like Tizzy suggests. Makers who spend years honing their craft and finding new ways to make their production faster doesn't suddenly mean their work is worth less, and in fact should make it more valuable. Makers who have gotten their craft to a point should be charging more for the efficiency and quality they can now produce. Because if there's one more thing we need in this fandom, it's more cookie-cutter fursuits who are made on an industrial scale. The irony of the whole situation is that Tizzy wants to be more inclusive by making fursuit prices lower so that more people can afford them. But at the same time, she wants someone to come along and industrialize the whole process, which would then drive out other fursuit makers in place of an industrialized complex, thereby excluding them from their own field. In reality, what would happen is that most individuals not part of the industrialization would just raise their prices or keep their prices high, and all you would have done is flood the market with cheaply made fursuits. It's great if you want to create the Walmart brand of fursuits, but Gucci's always going to be there. As far as the idea of industrializing the fandom is concerned, considering how many furries scream at the idea of soap and don't wear deodorant, the idea of a furry sweatshop sounds horrid. To cap this all off, Tizzy Fits makes some good points when it comes to affordability for fursuits within the fandom. However, she deliberately refuses to acknowledge smaller makers who can fit smaller budgets, and her argument contradicts itself when she tries to argue for more mainstream popular makers to be more affordable, while also making more money and somehow charging customers less. Her main argument also suggests pro-industrialization for the suit-making business, which I'm sure no one wants to be a part of, as it takes away from the handcrafted aspect which we all love. There are some simple solutions to these dilemmas, however. Number 1, clients can save up to commission a bigger maker. It's simple as that. 2, if you don't have the money for a bigger maker, commission a smaller maker who fits within your budget. And 3, if you don't want to commission either one of those two, make your own suit. Industrializing the fandom has never been a good idea, and it takes away from the artist's individuality and the handmade craft which we all love about fursuits. Makers deserve to be paid more than minimum wage for their outstanding work. And if you can't afford a bigger maker, don't worry about it. There's a maker out there for everyone, and one of those makers can definitely fit your budget. That's all the news for this week. Tune in next week as leading health experts ask, should you bathe in your fursuit? Lil Nas says yes.
You know, after a long day, this was much needed.
For more news and updates about the fandom, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that breaking news bell. For early bird news and rewards, you can also subscribe to my Patreon. Links to that and more in the description below. I'm INKStudios with Fox Facts News, and we'll see you right here next time. See ya!